Someone please help me, 190, what is your emergency? There's an alligator attacking my neighbor, Emily Carter. She's trapped in the pool. Please send help quickly. Stay on the line. Help is on the way. Is she conscious? Is she breathing? I don't know, she's screaming, but then she disappears under the water. There's blood in the water. Please send help immediately. It's Emily Carter. In the quiet town of Clearwater, Springs, Florida, known more for its extensive citrus orchards than for wild incidents, there was a story that would surprise everyone. In the back of an ordinary house, there was a sanctuary for wild animals and a dangerous predator that had been growing there for 5 years. Emily Carter was the dedicated caretaker of this alligator named Reef. Since he was a tiny baby, almost, as small as Emily's palm, he had been taken in, fed and raised with almost maternal care. What happened that August afternoon shocked not only the residents of Clearwater Springs, but also sparked an urgent debate about the risks of keeping wild animals in domestic environments. This is Animal Quest. If you like real stories about people and the animals they once trusted, but later became a threat, subscribe to the channel, like and share. Now let's get to the story. Emily was 28 when she died tragically in that quiet town. Known locally as a true hero, she was more than just an animal lover. She was practically a foster mom to any creature that crossed her path. From orphaned raccoons to abandoned skunks and injured birds, she took them all in and cared for them with an open heart and uncommon determination. But none of them had captured her heart like Reef, the alligator she found 5 years earlier, near the banks of the Appalachian River. At the time, the little alligator was just over 20 centimeters long, wide-eyed with a striped belly and soft skin. While most people would have quickly backed away, Emily did something different. She picked him up gently, wrapped him in a towel, and took him home. She named the baby Reef. From the beginning, the bond between them was intense. Emily joked that the alligator had imprinted on her like a duckling recognizes its mother, and that she would be the only mother he would ever know. Through her animal rehabilitation center, she obtained special permission to legally care for Reef even as he grew rapidly, and his growth was impressive. At 3 years old, Reef was already over 1.5 meters long. At 5, he was almost 2.5 meters from snout to tail tip. Neighbor after neighbor noticed his imposing presence. Wildlife officials warned her several times. They cautioned her that regardless of their seemingly docile behavior, alligators never lose their most primitive instincts: hunger, territorial, defense, and scent perception, which override any bond of trust or affection. But Emily wouldn't listen. To her, Reef was different. She fed the alligator by hand, swam with him in the backyard pool, and even let him rest beside her while she read on the patio. Social media showed dozens of photos of Reef resting on her leg, videos of him responding to his owner's voice as if he were a trained dog. The public's comments ranged from enchantment to horror. She saw Reef as her son, but for some experts that may have been exactly the problem. For 5 years there was no sign of danger. Reef never showed any signs of aggression. Emily could touch him, float beside him in the water, even stroke his jaw. He would close his eyes and remain motionless, seemingly comforted by her presence. He knew her scent and reacted to her voice, but nature does not forget. Reef was growing. In 2023, he weighed almost 140 kilograms, and his powerful tail was capable of knocking down a standing adult. He no longer fit in his old cage. His diet also changed. He was no longer fed by hand. Now he ate whole chickens, fish, and even frozen rats thrown from a distance to avoid contact. Despite this, Emily still went into the pool with him, claiming that spending time together helped strengthen the trust between them. For trained officers, however, these were worrying signs. Conditioned behavior, not a genuine bond. But Emily insisted that Reef saw her as family. And on that fateful afternoon in August, the illusion she had built came crashing down. Emily was still floating next to Reef in the pool, silently whispering words of comfort and smiling as if nothing had changed. But in fact, everything had changed. She just hadn't realized it yet. By the summer of 2022, Reef had grown to an impressive 2.3 meters in length. His body was robust and muscular, his snout broad, and his eyes, once small and dependent, were now cold and alert. Despite his growth, Emily continued to treat him like the fragile baby she had rescued from the swamp. She swam with him, talked to him, and fed Reef whole chickens, which he now devoured with thunderous force. As time went on, concerns began to arise. Wildlife officials, neighbors, and even close friends began to worry. Kenneth Lyles, an experienced agent with the Florida Wildlife Commission, visited the property after a routine inspection raised suspicions. He had already heard about Reef from other agents. The famous pet alligator was a name that circulated discreetly at internal meetings. In his official report, Lyles recorded Reef's size, the condition of his enclosure, and his behavior. But what bothered him most was Emily's attitude. At one point, he told her bluntly, "Instincts will prevail. He's not a dog, Emily." She just smiled as if she had heard it many times before. For Emily, the warnings were based on fear, not facts. She claimed to know Reef better than anyone else, that he was calm, predictable, and safe. Meanwhile, reports began to pour in. Neighbors reported hearing loud noises and hissing during the alligator's meals. One man claimed to have seen Reef raise his body and slap his tail against the fence when Emily approached with a bucket. A teenager walking her dog near the property said she saw the alligator lunge at the metal fence with his jaws open. But Emily continued to deny any change. On social media, she posted videos of Reef resting in the sun by the pool while she sat cross-legged a few feet away from him. In the video, she laughed softly and said, "He's misunderstood. People don't understand. He's not dangerous, he just needs trust." In the comments, however, opinions were divided. Many asked her to be careful, to stop swimming with him, to let him go. Others warned that she was risking her life, calling Reef a time bomb. Emily did not respond. The warnings had been given, clearly and repeatedly, and in a few weeks they would be confirmed. On the sunny afternoon of August 18th, 2023, the air was heavy and humid, the kind that sticks to your skin and makes every movement slow and uncomfortable. Emily went out to her backyard carrying a pool cleaning net and a bucket. The water was cloudy, covered with algae, and as so many times before, she planned to clean it up. Reef was nearby, his huge body floating just below the surface in the shallow end of the pool. He usually remained calm during these cleanings, sometimes curious, sometimes indifferent. But on this day, something was different. An eerie silence hung in the air. His eyes were half closed, but his muscles were tense, almost motionless beneath the water. Emily entered the pool calmly, ignoring the subtle warning signs. She was confident. She had done this over 100 times before. What she didn't know was that Reef was restless. He had been fed less than an hour earlier a large meal that left him satisfied but unsettled. His natural hunting instincts were awake, hidden beneath his calm exterior. When Emily dipped the net into the water, Reef moved quickly. His powerful tail swept her legs out from under her before she could react. Suddenly, his jaws closed with terrifying force on her right leg. The impact was brutal. Instinctively, Reef began what experts call a death roll, a violent spin that alligators use to incapacitate their prey. Emily's desperate screams echoed through the yard. She struggled to free herself, but Reef's grip was relentless. Panic took over the quiet afternoon. Neighbors, hearing the noise and screams, quickly called 911. For Emily, however, this was just another routine moment, another cleaning, another moment of caring for the creature she loved. But Reef had other plans. Around 3:15 p.m., Clara Monroe, the next-door neighbor, was tending to her garden when a shocking sound interrupted the late afternoon calm. It started with a frantic noise in the pool next door, followed by desperate screams. Clara dropped her gardening tools and ran to the fence, her heart racing. Looking over, she saw the nightmare unfolding in slow motion. Reef, the huge alligator, she knew from afar, was thrashing violently in the pool. Emily was struggling, her limbs flailing as Reef lunged forward, clutching her right thigh tightly. The grip was indescribable, an overwhelming primal force. Without hesitation, Reef began the death roll. The pool water boiled as he spun her body underwater several times, pulling her down. Emily's screams echoed through the nearby houses, desperate and filled with terror. "Help, please!" She screamed for help, but the panicked murmur was quickly swallowed by the thunderous violence happening underwater. Clara's hands trembled as she picked up the phone, her voice failing as she dialed 911. "There's blood in the pool," she said urgently, her voice trembling with fear. "She's not moving. Please send help quickly. Someone is being attacked by an alligator in the pool." Reef dragged Emily to the deepest part, his jaws clamped tightly around her leg. The water became cloudy, tinged with veins of blood as the struggle continued below the surface. Emily's movements slowed, her strength fading. Neighbors, incredulous, gathered to watch helplessly from behind fences and windows. Soon the flashing lights of emergency vehicles illuminated the scene, sirens cutting through the tense atmosphere. Rescue crews prepared for the worst, but the damage had already been done. Emily Carter's life was slowly slipping away in the murky waters of her own backyard pool. Less than 8 minutes after Clara's desperate call, the first ambulances arrived on the quiet streets of Clearwater Springs. Paramedics rushed through the backyard gate, accompanied by officers from the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. The scene was chaotic. Neighbors stood frozen, the water that had once been crystal clear now filled with blood and churning sediment. Wildlife officers moved quickly, using long poles designed to control dangerous animals. Reef thrashed violently in the deep end of the pool, his powerful tail slamming against the edge as officers tried to pull him away from the motionless body in the water. It was a tense and dangerous dance. One false move could cost another life. Cautiously, paramedics entered the pool and pulled Emily out. Her body was limp, pale, covered in cuts and bruises. Her right leg was severely injured, deep lacerations and crush injuries marked by the obvious jaw marks of a large alligator. In addition to the physical trauma, there were clear signs of drowning, lungs saturated with water and labored breathing. Despite the rapid response and frantic efforts to stabilize her, Emily remained unconscious. She was taken by ambulance to the hospital where trauma surgeons fought to save her life, but her injuries were too severe. Hours later, in a sterile room surrounded by the hum of machines and whispered prayers, Emily Carter was pronounced dead. The tragedy deeply shook the community, but the crisis was not over. With Emily's death, Reef was captured by officers using tranquilizer darts. The huge alligator, once a beloved pet, was now a deadly danger. Following state protocols for dangerous captive alligators involved in human fatalities, Reef was euthanized. Shortly after his capture, the Oncitame reptile was put down, ending a painful chapter in a relationship that ended tragically. News of Emily Carter's death spread quickly throughout Clearwater Springs and beyond. Waves of shock and sadness rippled through the close-knit community. Friends, neighbors, and animal lovers struggled to comprehend how something so terrible could happen to someone so dedicated to wildlife. In the days that followed, candlelight vigils were held in her honor. Many gathered at the local park, holding photos of Emily smiling alongside Reef when he was still a baby. Tears flowed freely as stories were shared about her kindness, her passion, and her unwavering commitment to the creatures that many feared. Former colleagues at the Regional Wildlife Rehabilitation Center spoke openly about Emily's dedication, but also about the growing concerns they had kept quiet. "She loved him, yes," said Sarah Middleton, another rescuer, her voice breaking with emotion. "But at some point she forgot who he really was. A wild animal. No matter how close you think you are, the instincts never go away." That warning reverberated throughout the community and also gained traction in broader discussions about the risks and responsibilities of keeping exotic animals as pets. Reef's death and Emily's tragic loss reignited an intense debate about the laws governing exotic animal ownership in Florida. Animal rights advocates and wildlife officials began calling for stricter rules, emphasizing the dangers of keeping powerful predators in residential areas. Experts were invited to participate in national programs and panels to reinforce an essential truth: wild animals do not lose their instincts. "Domestication is a myth," said Dr. Marcus Lanning, a renowned herpetologist. "You can't eliminate nature from an alligator's DNA. These creatures are built to survive, and when they reach adulthood, they revert to their natural behaviors, often with fatal consequences." This tragedy forced many to rethink their ideas about the relationship between humans and wildlife, especially when it comes to powerful predators like alligators. Emily's story became a sobering lesson, a warning about love, trust, and the unforgiving realities of nature. Animal behaviorist Dr. Leah Torres, who has spent more than 20 years studying reptile behavior, offered insight into what likely occurred between Emily and Reef in the final moments of that tragedy. Alligators are territorial animals by nature, Dr. Torres explained. When Reef reached his full size, over 2 meters long and weighing hundreds of pounds, his instincts to defend his territory intensified. Emily, as familiar as she seemed to him, became a perceived threat within that space. She points to the timing of the attack as a crucial factor. Alligators exhibit specific behaviors related to feeding, including increased aggression shortly after feeding or in anticipation of food. Emily entered the pool shortly after Reef had been fed. This is a dangerous time because although the animal is satiated, its territorial instincts and irritability are heightened. Dr. Torres emphasizes that some warning signs, such as hissing, tail strikes, and quick attacks, are subtle and can be easily misinterpreted or ignored, especially when there is an emotional bond involved. Humans tend to anthropomorphize these animals, seeing affection or calm where savagery still reigns. But the reality is that wild predators act on instinct and for survival. The boundaries between human and animal must be respected no matter how close you think they are. You can never completely control or predict the actions of a predator. She concludes with a warning. This tragedy underscores the importance of respecting wildlife for what it truly is: powerful, unpredictable, and wild. Emotional ties do not change this fundamental truth. Emily Carter dedicated her life to saving wild animals, but in trying to tame nature, she lost her own life to it. Her memorial, surrounded by flickering candles and photographs that capture moments of compassion and connection, remains a solemn reminder of the fine line between human and wild. If this story touched you, share this video to help raise awareness about the dangers of keeping exotic animals as pets. Subscribe to our channel for more real stories from the wild, and don't miss our next video where we'll dive deep into the risks of raising dangerous animals at home. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and respect nature. If you liked this story, check out our other real videos about wild animals. Share to alert more people and leave your comment. Do you think it's safe to have exotic animals at home? Subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.